Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up.
So you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We're back. Happy week.
We hope you've had a good creative week.
Yes, absolutely. And we are going to talk about ours right now, too. So, Joy, what did you do?
Okay, so this past week I wrote a short story, which isn't totally uncommon for me. I do write short stories often, and I love them. In fact, we did our whole 3-part series, which we both feel like is one of our favorite series that we've done. It's talking about short fiction.
Absolutely.
Because it teaches you so much in such a short amount of time. But something that I learned as I was doing this particular one, which was super short, like only a few sentences really, but I really played around with each sentence, changing the focus of each sentence. So I had a character not named, not really described, but I had a character, and I had this character's heart and this character's, some of their like heartbeat and pulse and, things like that. And then I had a mountain, okay? And so I just kind of played around with changing the focus in the sentences from, say, the heartbeat or something like that to the character, to the mountain, and determining, okay, well, where should the focus be for each of these sentences? And so it was kind of cool to see the change that it made as I adjusted each sentence and the focus. So that was kind of fun and nerdy, I know, but I loved it.
No, I love that. I do.
I know.
And I know that it was a shorter story, just a few lines, and you can find that on Joy's blog because she actually posted it as one of her blog entries. And what I thought was interesting about it was that you probably spent a bit of time playing around with those sentences just to get those few lines, right?
That's true, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you learned so much with the emphasis and what is going to make the most impact with what you want to say, what you actually want to say in subtext with all of that emphasis. So yes, and more yes.
Nerds unite.
Here we go. Cool. Well, this week I actually put a few things down because I was kind of feeling a little empty and overwhelmed. And so instead of creating, I intook some creativity. And I read a book by Christina Lauren called The Unhoneymooners, and it is a comedy, a romantic comedy. And boy, oh boy, it was so refreshing and so funny. It was so funny. What I love about Christina Lauren and their women's fiction series, they have other series as well, but I particularly love their women's fiction, where it's like chick lit a little bit, but it's a little bit more than chick lit because every single one of their stories in this genre that they are writing in is the main character, especially the main female character, but also the main male characters. They have to go through an internal change in order to be right for each other. So I love how they do that because they never let their characters end up together without that internal change. And it's so fulfilling. Yeah, it's so fulfilling. And that's not just in romance, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. That's in any story. I would venture to say any story, any genre. If that internal change is not there, if that character arc is not fulfilled at the end, then your reader is going to be unfulfilled as well.
And I feel like you hit the nail on the head with what sometimes bothers me. Sometimes, particularly in that genre, I think that's just like the one that we automatically think of for that kind of thing. To have them end up together without making those personal changes, and that is frustrating. But like you said, it goes across genres. Like if you don't have that change, that's that's kind of the heart of a story.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And so, if you're looking for a recommendation of women's fiction that does this well in a romantic situation, Christina Lauren's women's fiction um, romantic comedies are really good with that. They're light, they're fun, they're funny, and they really have that full character arc. They also have it's two people actually. Christina Lauren is actually a co-author
Okay.
name.
I wondered. I figured it must have been, but I would not have known
I know, and
that.
I keep saying they, and you're like, oh, her grammar is so bad today. We are going to have to cut all of this out. She's like, time out, guys. Sorry, I could see it on your face.
Was I grammar judging you again?
You were totally judging me. But yes, it's a co-author group, a co-author pen name, and they are so wonderful together. They make magic together. And Unhoneymooners was a wonderful book. I also liked Roomies, and I really, really liked Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. That one, that character arc was so good, and I adored Hazel. Don't get the audiobook though, because the guy's voice is really annoying. Read that sucker. So. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. That actually leads us into our topic for tonight and might actually spark a few things for our challenge.
So we are going to be talking about how one engaging book can lead us to another book and to another book and to another book. So I actually started reading on an entertaining level when I was an adult. I enjoyed reading when I was younger, but it wasn't something that I voluntarily did. It generally had to be assigned to me. So that's how I found The Hobbit, and that's how I found A Wrinkle in Time, and other books that I just have loved and adored. But I didn't really go to libraries, and I didn't really go to bookstores or anything like that as a kid, and so that's that. But as an adult, I found after college there was a complete reading drought.
That's a good word.
Yeah, it was a complete reading drought that happened, and I was at home one day, and my husband was ill, and I had to sleep on the couch because he was ill. And I had the Twilight series with me, and I just couldn't go to sleep. I didn't want to watch TV because we had a small house, and you could hear everything that would keep him awake, and he really needed his wet rest. So I picked up one of the Twilight books, and I started reading on recommendation by a friend of mine, a friend and family member. And I did not sleep that night because I thought.
So in a good way. You didn't sleep that night in a good way.
Exactly. I didn't read because I wanted to know what happened next in the story. And then over the next 2 weeks, I actually read all 4 books because that's how long it took for my husband to get over his staph infection that he had in his leg, which is terrible, guys.
Poor thing.
Horrible thing. He's fine now. So this was some time ago. But I will always be thankful for the Twilight series because it was the original spark that ignited my personal reading / writing / learning wildfire. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And with this topic, we wanted to talk about how one engaging book can lead you to another. So this Twilight series made me want more. And more and more and more. And I went on this kind of crazy maniacal search for books. And that's what my family thought, at least. They thought I went crazy. So I just read more and more, especially in the YA paranormal genre. I know that ended up just blowing up at that particular point in time. And I started reading one after the other, and I found that there were some that sparked my interest more than others, and I started to try to figure out why I liked this and I didn't like this, and that sort of thing. And on recommendation from other people, but after I've been talking to about these books because it changed my life, right? I found that there were other genres out there that could be fulfilling in a different way. So this was if I were to put my journey on a graph or a line graph or something, I don't know. I shouldn't even try with math.
I know, we're
Analogy.
writers. That's not our thing.
Here I am anyway. And here we are. So for the first book, so if you took the Twilight series and you took that YA paranormal genre, so the first book leads you to other books in that genre. And then there's a leap that goes to a book outside of that genre, which leads you to more books in that new genre. And then as you get into books that are in different genres, the next leap would be books that are outside of the niche that you're in. So if you're reading a lot of fiction, if all the genres that you're reading are fiction, then when you are getting out of that genre level and you're hopping into another niche, then maybe you're hopping into self-improvement books or nonfiction books, craft books, things like that, things that are going to help you in other ways. And you're finding fulfillment in other ways in that niche. So that's how it worked for me, but it might work differently for other people. So Joy, what do you think?
So, yeah, I was talking about this with her, and, the first things that came to my mind when we started discussing this topic, I really went straight to my kids and to my husband, because for me, I grew up a reader. Like, I don't really remember a time that I didn't read. And then, in further discussion, we realized some other things about my own personal reading habits. But I think the really cool thing is with specifically with my husband. I want to start with him. So, and he has shared this before. He actually wrote a blog post for me on my blog about his experience growing up not as a reader. And he's also talked about this in one of my monthly book club events that I do live on my Facebook page. So he's talked about this a couple of times, so I think it's okay for me to mention it here. But he didn't grow up reading. He had the reading requirements for school, which he would always, choose the shortest book, right? Is that kind of the way it went? Because he didn't grow up as a reader, he struggled a lot, especially in grad school. At that point, you got to read a lot. Okay, and so his graduate school work was in theology, and those are not easy things to read, and there's a lot of it. And so what he discovered was, because he saw me reading fiction, and he decided to pick up some Tom Clancy books. I had a bunch of Tom Clancy books that my brother had given me, and so he picked up one of those and fell in love because it's Tom Clancy and he's amazing and I love him. And so what he discovered, though, through that was the more that he read in the fiction stuff. Okay. Tolkien is either tripping back there or he might be about to hack up a fur ball. I really don't know. Anyway.
Poor baby.
So either way, what he discovered was by reading more fiction that was a little bit easier to read because it's a story and you want to keep following it, he was then becoming a better reader. And so reading the harder textbooks was easier for him because he was flexing those muscles. We've talked about that before. Reading is, in many ways, it's an exercise. It's a form of exercise for our minds. And so the more that he would read those, the easier it was for him to read and to comprehend harder things. And so that was something that he kind of learned. And he's become quite a reader. Like, he really loves to read now. It's something that he really enjoys. When we go on vacation, camping, things like that, he brings a book and he sits down and reads too. And that wasn't something that he would have done even a few years ago. So that's kind of cool. And then with my kids, the kids. So they each have different preferences when it comes to stories and stuff like that. But I think the best example for kids is giving them the Harry Potter books, because even though they're ginormous, they're really pretty easy to read and to follow, and the kids want to just devour them. And so they get into that, and then you give them something that might be a little bit more challenging, like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and they've kind of done similar to what my husband did. they've worked those muscles, and it's a little easier for them to read maybe longer works, or maybe works where the wording is a little bit more challenging for us today, like Tolkien's works would be. So things like that. So that's kind of what I've noticed and observed in them. But I think one of the things that you mentioned a couple of times, you said the word recommendation, on recommendation.
Yes,
and I think,
on recommendation. Yes.
I think
That's
that
what it
is
took
so
for me
important.
to go from one big leap to another big leap, was somebody that I trusted their literary opinion, and they said, maybe you should try this book, and I trusted them. So, and I'm so thankful that they recommended. So I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say two things on that. One thing was, this actually happened yesterday, I believe. My daughter came to me, and this really is the coolest feeling, because like my kids come to me and they're like, well, I've read everything that we have. I don't have anything to read. What can I read? And I'm like, oh, well, let's just see. And so we go over to the bookshelf, and there are still books that they haven't read yet. And so this happened with my daughter, and I pulled out Blue by, oh, for heaven's sakes, I'm not going to remember her name now because I just pulled this off the top of my head. Joyce Moyer Hostetter. There you go. She is an incredible writer, and she's written Blue and Comfort, and then she went back and she wrote the A in the series, which was AIM. Oh, there's our time. But anyway, so Blue was the first one that she wrote, and it's a middle grade book, and it's set during the time of the polio outbreaks and all of that in the U.S. So it's historical fiction for kids, and oh, I love it. And the main character's name is Faith Ann Honeycutt. I think I'm remembering that right. And she's just adorable. She wears her overalls, and she's a tomboy, and I just love her. And so I handed my daughter that book, and I said, you're going to love Faith Ann. Now go. And so in her eyes, like, I mean, she totally trusted me, because my kids know, you know, that I have good recommendations for them. They've come to trust that if I give them a book, it's probably going to be a good one. So, and that they're going to like it.
And I think that that's why I'm so free with recommendations as well, is because it's recommendations that changed my life. So I'm like, let me tell you what could potentially change your life. And I just love that. I love that. And I think that's what makes the literary community so, so great and so tight-knit, because there's this thread that connects us all. And it's these love for these stories, and the need to share what has happened to us because of these stories. And so good.
And that's like, because you're the one who turned me on to Maggie Stiefvater, and now I am like, oh my gosh, I've just finished her 4th book, and I'm just
how did you like All the Crooked Saints?
I loved it so much. Like,
I mean, really.
I just really needed to sit down and have a chat with Maggie, because I just love her writing, because it's just so Maggie. So she writes the way that she wants to write.
Voice.
Yes.
Author voice. That is an author who got it correct. And
absolutely.
Oh, I mean, you pick up a book and you read a few chapters and you're like, this is a Maggie Stiefvater book.
Yeah, definitely.
How does she do it?
It's amazing.
I don't know the magic that she has over that yet. I have not been able to pick it apart. But if you're looking for an excellent example for author voice, bang, right there, got you.
Absolutely. And that love came from you. Thank you very much. And so anytime, you know, that, like you were talking about the thread. So anytime you meet someone, you start talking about books that you've read, when you realize that you've each read someone and you both really loved that book or that author, or, I mean, boom, you've got automatic
connection.
Yep.
Yeah. Instant connection. And it's also, it almost feels like a instant friend. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like all of a sudden I know you and I love you.
It's the whole kindred spirit thing, which comes from Anne of Green Gables. So if you've read Anne of Green Gables, you totally get that right now, and we are now kindred spirits.
Yes, we are. We're bosom buddies.
Yes, bosom buddies. Love it.
Okay, we got a QWERTY challenge, Joy.
Oh, yes, I know we do. Sorry. So sorry.
We can talk about books.
Don't mind us.
Obviously. Okay, our QWERTY challenge for today is to read outside of your comfort zone and tell us what you choose. So if you need a recommendation for a book, guess who can give you one? We can. So if you would like a recommendation,
we're your girls.
Just email. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we are. So just email editorial@logosandmythospress and that will be in the show notes as well, so you don't have to remember that if you're like driving and listening to this. But we will be happy to give you a recommendation. Just let us know what you normally read and what you might be interested in reading, another genre or something like that. Or if you just want a recommendation in the genre that you love, that's so fine. We probably have read something that will be a cool book for you to read too. Let's see if we are kindred spirits. So we would love to do that. But if you do choose to read outside of your genre on your own, and you find something that you love, or maybe you think that we're full of patootie. I don't know if that's a cliche. I was going to say, I don't know what I was going to say.
I think that was great.
If you think that we are full of poop, then you can email us and let us know that too. We will agree to disagree. So.
There you go. We will listen to your recommendations and see what we think about them.
Yes, if you have a book that you love and you just think is out of this world, email us and let us know, because we want to read it. We might have already read it even, so we just want to know. Always looking for something to put on the to be read list.
Absolutely. And if you have a book that pops into your mind as, kind of a pivotal book for you in your reading life, like May had with the Twilight series, if you have a story like that, we would love to hear about it. Share it with us, because, hey, we love to read, and we love stories about other people who love to read and what makes books special.
Absolutely. Let's be a community.
Yes.
Guys. Well, we hope that you have a wonderful week and make something.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
oh my word,
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.